God is bigger and greater than all our unanswered questions. We can trust him. And those who know your name put their trust in you. For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. Psalms 9:10. This is an epic story of a battle between two people, this guy named Goliath and a teenager named David. Goliath represented an army called the Philistines, and David represented an army called the Israelites. The Israelites were God's special people, and the Philistines were their enemy. Goliath, who was a great champion, came out of the Philistine camp. He was over 9 feet tall. Goliath had a helmet of bronze on his head and a suit of armor on his body that weighed 125 pounds or more. Now every day for 40 days, Goliath would come between the two armies and shout to the Israelite army. He would taunt them and try to get someone to fight him. If Goliath killed one Israelite, then all the Israelites would have to be servants to the Philistines. The leader of the Israelite army was King Saul. When he and his army heard Goliath's idea, they were super afraid. Nobody was willing to fight against Goliath. Now, there was an Israelite family whose father was named Jesse. Jesse had 8 boys. The oldest 3 were in the Israelite army. The father, Jesse, asked his youngest son, David, who was in his late teens at the time, to take some food to his brothers and other Israelite soldiers. After arriving, he ran to the front lines just as Goliath the giant was coming out for his usual taunt. All the men of Israel ran away when they heard Goliath. David witnessed all this, and asked what was going to be done for the person who fought Goliath. He was greatly upset because he saw that Goliath was mocking the army of God. Well, when the Israelites heard what David was saying, they took him to King Saul. David told Saul he would go and fight Goliath. Saul didn't think David would be able to fight him, well, because David was only a teenager. David finally told Saul that he had taken care of sheep and fought off lions and bears and killed them. Goliath would be just like a lion or a bear. God protected him from the lion and the bear, and God would protect him from Goliath too. So Saul agreed for David to be the one to fight Goliath. He dressed David in his armor and helmet. But David wasn't used to them and didn't want to use them. So he took the armor off. David didn't want to trust in armor, but in God. Then it was time for David and Goliath to fight. But David wasn't intimidated by Goliath. No, David trusted in God because he knew who God is. God is faithful to his people, and God is stronger than any army. David knew he was fighting for the Lord and God's honor. God would give him the strength. Not only that, but David also said God would deliver Goliath into his hand, and David would strike him down and cut off his head. He said the battle is the Lord's. That means the Lord is in control, and David was confident he would win the Lord's help. Goliath began to come toward David, but David didn't run away. He instead ran quickly toward Goliath, grabbing a stone and putting it into a sling. He slung it and struck Goliath smack dab in the middle of the forehead and fell over dead. The Israelites were so glad. Then David took Goliath's sword and cut off his head, just like he said he would. And all the Philistine army ran away.